So, Amy Luciani went down to the internet, Instagram Live, in fact, and announced to the world that her marriage was in danger. And then 2 days later, her husband, Dwight Howard, raced down to the courthouse to announce that he's filing for divorce. Unfortunately, Amy refused to heed the advice and the cautionary tales from the women and victims that came before her. And she chose instead to love Dwight through it, love him through his situation. That was detrimental because the marriage didn't last 14 months. Patriarchal narcissism is a recipe for disaster and destruction, and ignoring it to placate a fantasy can prove to be your detriment. Let's talk about it. Okay, I'm Megan Donovet, and welcome. Today's video, we're talking a little bit about the mess and the drama, but most importantly, about how we can better self-love in times of conflict in order to make better life decisions. Before I get into the frameworks, let's get into the full picture to provide more context. Firstly, who is Dwight Howard? I have the notes because I don't get into the sports. Dwight Howard is an NBA Hall of Famer, an 8-time NBA All-Star, 2020 champion with the Lakers. He has 5 children with 5 different women. He has a history of sexual battery. In 2023, there was a lawsuit filed by a man in his Atlanta area home. And he, of course, denied it. That does not refute the allegations. And there was a custody war with Royce Reed, who we discussed briefly in another video. I'll link it at the end of this one and down below, of course. Royce Reed of Basketball Wives fame. And they had an extensive custody battle that was quite public from 2008 to 2012. And it included a defamation lawsuit from which violated their gag order and spoke on additional allegations of inappropriate sexual acts, inappropriate conduct with the children, alleging that he wasn't the best parent, a host of things. The pattern of chaos in Dwight's personal life is not a new revelation. If we pull the Carfax and the receipts, allegedly and factually, you can go on record to learn that Dwight has a very torrid history with alleged sexual abuse, sexual misconduct, and lots of addiction. Who is Amy Luciani? Her real name is Amber Rose Howard, formerly of Love and Hip Hop. She is an Atlanta cast member. She also appeared on a few other reality shows. She and Dwight married on January 11, 2025, after a fast courtship. And in less than 6 months, in July 2025, Amy filed for divorce. Then she withdrew the petition. And they continued to stay married. And then Dwight filed, but then he withdrew. And then they reconciled again. And now here we are, almost 8 months later, and the two are back in the news again, just looking quite foolish, embarrassing, and making a very, very sad case for the children. But again, I just wanted to be very clear as we pull in the Carfax that Amy Luciani was a woman who was warned. It was very clear if you wanted to know that Dwight was probably not the best candidate for a husband, father, partner, even friend of the year. The Carfax were there. The police allegations were there. The courthouse filings were there. The several baby mamas were there. It was all very clear. And there were a lot of public warnings and public speculations and opinions at the initial time of their announcements of getting married, because Dwight had been in the news several different times. Different people had alleged on Dwight's behalf that Dwight was a bisexual and was still struggling with coming out with being a bisexual man, toxic masculinity and all. Again, it sounds like a problem that someone would need to work through on their own and not necessarily rush to the marital altar. That was not Amy's decision, as we see. All right. So one more reminder before we go deeper into the framework, that Amy Luciani had full agency. Let's be clear. She was admitting at the end of this video that she's shared, that's now gone viral, that she's collateral damage in the marriage or in the relationship. But be mindful that she did have full agency, had the opportunity to know full well before walking into a situation that may not have been the healthiest for her. It did not have to happen. She could have left at any given time or never had to marry him altogether. Amy was ignoring all of the signs in order to be chosen, in order to be validated by marriage or the system that is patriarchy, because the system tends to reward on the surface, the women that are chosen, that have been selected. That's the whole design of modern marriage and the romanticism of it all. If you peel back the onion, it's a big business. But ultimately, you prey on women's systemic desire that they've massaged in us since childbirth to be picked like you're a Disney princess. Somebody picks you, you're validated, you are chosen. So if you go back and listen to Amy's video, she talks incessantly, but she never calls Dwight out by name. She always says, my husband, I want to stay by my husband. And it's like, girl, there's men everywhere, is it really that serious? To her it is, and you can see that validation by a man or in that systemic way was deeply deeply important to her, so much so she was willing to sabotage her own safety, smart decisions, and locations and whereabouts, because she was definitely in her car with a grocery bag full of crack rock and cocaine, pressing record and doing her snotty confessions. Let's get into the framework, the plight of the hot girl framework. The systemic patterns in this public relationship were very, very clear, and we shouldn't skip over them, because although this is a relationship that's currently in the headlines, we can take away from additional relationships that are public and also those that we know personally, because let's be clear, there's an Amy Luciani in all of our proximities. Women, people that we know, maybe I'm talking to you, said that. You have a tendency to make decisions that are not the best or the healthiest for you in order to seek male validation. But we're not doing that this year. We're decentering the patriarchy. So let's get into the framework of the plight of the hot girl. Sports bras out here. We're going to use the framework from my thesis, from the plight of the hot girl, and break down these patterns that we've seen in this public relationship that were indeed warning signs and that could have been heeded. And then this way we can potentially take away these warning signs for ourselves. First, critical thought and pillar. Complicity is used as survival. You've heard me mention this before. Why did Amy continue to stay? Why did she go back to Dwight Howard? In her own words from the most recent video, everybody around me told me to stay in my marriage. Everybody said, don't you leave your husband. Your husband. She mentions, you said through sickness, through health, through good or the bad. That's why I came back. She's referencing the vows that she took during her marital exchange. Bless. In this situation, let's be very clear, they're being taken out of context, because she was clearly in an abusive situation that put herself and her stepchildren at risk. And it was clearly time to get out. You have to save yourself in an abusive situation. You can't take the word of the Lord and manipulate that. Okay? So let's further unpack this. Who are the counsel? When she makes these statements, these gross statements, who are the counsel and this wise people in your life that would give you such horrible advice? Point them out. We want names, we want addresses. And if there really isn't any counsel and you were really thinking that this is a societal pressure, as I mentioned before, which is what happens to a lot of people, maybe it's like a parent or someone's opinion that you continue to massage, and then you can find systemic and societal examples to back that up, to support that opinion, which is not a fact, right? Does that have the truth in mind? The truth is that you are love, you are worthy of love. And when you look at love's root definition, abuse, disrespect, self-deprecation, like none of that is within the example. We have Bible study every Thursday, and I also reference the love meditations where we talk more about that. We dive deeper into self-love and what the real definition of that is, because that is a true example. But in Amy's case, you want to intentionally surround yourself. You want to surround yourself with the community that knows who you are, who knows the truth about your potential and what God, specifically God, sees for you, which is not to be in an abusive relationship settling for the BS that centers patriarchal men specifically that are shrinking under the guise of their closeted manhood. I digress. The point is, no, your intentional community should uplift you, should offer you great advice. So be careful from whom which you seek this advice and from who's telling you to stay in certain situations. Who does that benefit to have you stay in an abusive relationship? Questions that need answers. Additionally, the self-esteem needed some strengthening, because it should have been strong enough to know that that advice may not have been the strongest. Anyone that would tell me not to be my best self or to work towards becoming my best self, to stay with someone who has a horrible Carfax record or track record of being amazing, that might not be the best friend group, the best relationship situation, the best advice source, to surround myself with. And that only comes with a stronger self-esteem, a stronger self-awareness. You have to know who you are. And it's very clear that Amy did not. Amy wanted to live through who she could be in the fantasy that was Dwight Howard, her Prince Charming, and being someone's wife. She made very clear that she wanted to be someone's wife. And that's my third point. Women are conditioned, specifically in America, since birth, to have a husband, any type of husband, not one that has a dowry, proven intelligence, or proven provision. No, in America, he just needs to be a man. And in that situation, an MRS is always going to be better than any other degree or certification or accomplishment that you can have. So Amy drank the Kool-Aid that is patriarchy, dun, 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 in American society, and genuinely was excited about the fact that she was someone's wife, that she had amassed a husband, okay? She wouldn't shut up about it. She used to try to needle Royce publicly about the fact that Royce didn't get a husband. You know how some women like to do. You can't keep a man and you can't keep a husband. And if you had all that and if you were all that, you'd be married. It's 2026, ladies. Bring it. Lean it in. Lean it in. Having a husband is not the flex that it once was, okay? So many things have changed. Like the veil of patriarchy, the heavy veil is being lifted from over our heads. And that ain't what we want. That's not, even statistically, marriage is not beneficial for women, especially in the same vein that it is for men. But yeah, it's 2026. Pull the facts for yourself. Ask Claude, ask ChatGPT. So I really would love for us to get away from shaming publicly the fact that one woman is married and one woman is not, and you can't keep a man. Because most of these men don't want to be kept anyway. They're out here just, I don't know what they're doing, but they don't want to be kept. So that's not the thing. Let's loose that from our vocabularies this year, shall we? Let's try to elevate and think more highly of ourselves, shall we? Maybe. All right, let's move into narrative control, because of course there's some narrative control in this situation that we can pull from. The first basic move outside of Dwight controlling the narrative throughout all of his previous relationships, be that in winning court cases, getting his PR out there, maintaining the custody of his children. So there would have to be a narrative in court or to the judge that he was a decent parent. Dwight raced to file for divorce after Amy snotted and cried all over the internet trying to out him. Although Amy thought she was taking control of the narrative, going live on Instagram, holding that crack rock, snorting it up her nose, Dwight beat her to the punch and basically told her to get out of the mansion and get out of this marriage immediately. Yikes. I mean, you let the crackhead abuse her husband divorce you. Ladies, stand up. Ladies. Let this be the year we remember who we are. Let's work on remembering who we are and bringing her to every single occasion and every situation. We got to keep our heads on the swivel. We got to keep great counsel around us to remind us of whom we are and to give us amazing advice. Because most women about their salt would have told you, sis, you need to race him down to the courthouse. You should have been Flo-Jo down to the courthouse after that video. The lawyer should have been on standby. Really not sure, really not clear what had happened there. But as it stands right now, Dwight is controlling that narrative because he has indeed beat her to the courthouse. Not all of this gossip, not all this action underneath the shade room posts like Amy. Again, what is happening? Who is her wise counsel? Okay, where is her wise counsel? But Dwight, is making the money moves and going right to the lawyer, ensuring that she gets no parts of the empire that he's amassed. There's also a section in the video, sidebar, where she's like bragging that I don't even use his money. I'm not on his credit cards. Girl, that's not a flex either. It's your husband. Run that checkup. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? I don't understand. That's a whole nother video. I don't understand that one. Don't get it. Amy's pain from the Instagram live video becomes the backdrop for Dwight's action, his decisive action. And he uses her tears to motivate him to further embarrass her, like most men do. He's going to control the story before it ends up defining him. And that is an ultimate win. That is patriarchy. You can know the facts or you can know aspects of the truth, but it matters as to how the truth is going to be told in the end. And if in the end, Dwight's not on the internet spewing accusations, holding crack rock for the feds to come to the house to come check him out on Tuesday. Instead, he's in the courthouse. He's doing things in order. He's coming out like the winner. Definitely the more sane one and definitely the more sober of the two. Even if you said he's out here doing crack, girl, you hold it in your hand. It's all in your nose. The residue is on your face. Amy. Bell Hooks wrote in Feminist Theory from Margin to Center in 1984, imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy doesn't just control bodies. It controls the story about those bodies. Whoever controls the narrative controls the history. Message. Number 3, the erasure of agency. Let's walk down the list. Amy has now filed for divorce twice on record and only withdrawn once. So she went public with the proof, poured powder in her hand, stuffed it up her nose, had the residue on her face, snorting and crying, trying to get high while exposing her lover, her husband. Sidebar, it almost read like two addicts that were arguing and she just ran off with the bag, got into the car, turned on the light. I mean, was she high? Who does that? Like, I was who does that? Amy, let's talk. It was giving addict behavior, sis. It was giving, I mean, a safe space. I've never seen crack rock like that. And when she put the rocks in her hand several different times, I'm thinking, doesn't your hand have to be like not a virginal hand for you not to be concerned that you're going to get a contact high? Like, I know a contact high from marijuana, like, but a contact high. Like, and then when she started moving it all over her face, I was like, ooh, girl, sis, now, your addiction showing. You got to wrap that back up, roll it back up. Can't believe you even brought it out in a grocery bag. I didn't even know they made a grocery bag. I've only seen like baggies of wheat. I'm getting off topic. Let's go back to the topic. Erasure of agency. Excuse me. She commented on the Shade Room after Dwight announced that he was filing. Again, back on social media to try to share her narrative, but she's already lost control. She wrote, racing me to file first when I filed first last year. It was such a desperate attempt to reclaim her authority, which is now clearly Black history. That has gone once the public was roasting you for the Instagram live decision. And then when Dwight put the nail in the coffin with, let's just end it all, you should probably just bow out gracefully and find legal counsel off social media. Amy's pain ended up just being content fodder. People are going to laugh at, make fun of it for who knows how long, right? But Dwight's decision, he's actually using that to make news stories, to change history, to better control this narrative. So you're taking away Amy's agency. She thought she had a little bit of power in the decision, even to expose him by playing a bigger game than she was. Social media is impactful only at the moment, you know what I'm saying? But a lawsuit or making a legal statement like a divorce trumps that immediately. Kimberly Crenshaw wrote that Black women's experiences are rendered invisible at the intersection of race and gender. Their resistance is disciplined and their pain is spectacle. Their agency is systemically minimized. I do want to add that it is not lost on me that Amy is not a martyr because, again, sis was down to her car with the lights on, with the grocery bag on her forearm and crack rock in her left hand, snorting and crying on the Instagram live. Okay. So not only are you relinquishing your agency but you're also committing a felony. Like, Amy, it's not lost on me. Ultimately, we're not here to villainize Dwight Howard because we are not the judge nor jury. But we are here to name the systems, because naming the systems and knowing the systems, those are the first steps before we can dismantle the systems and empower ourselves further to make decisions that have nothing to do with the systems. My original thesis argues that patriarchal hegemony does not exist or survive through force alone, but it takes consent. So we live in a culture that teaches women to participate in their own diminishment, and then we call it devotion. That's essentially what I was referencing earlier. The idea that in order to be married, you have to be submissive and be chosen by a man, no matter if he is equally yoked, really a provider, respectful to you, furthering or bettering your life, enhancing your dreams, etc. The focus has been, in the past especially, less on the fact of him being an upstanding and amazing, equally yoked partner to carry life's loads with you, and more so on the fact that it's patriarchy. You need to get in this ride shotgun and shut up, okay? You better be glad that a man picked you. And that is where we're going, ladies. Even in like elementary school, they sell us the princess Disney fantasy, the fairy tale, to be chosen by a man so he can be the head of your household. I think Amy even uses that language in her Instagram video. He's the head of my household. I want to support him. Patriarchy. We've all been drinking it. So we got to stop. We got to put down the cups, ladies. Put down the cups. And we want to go deeper into Amy's systems. Amy's systems were the church or the council that was telling her don't leave her marriage, the reality television show that was profiting from her pain the few years before she got with Dwight, because she was a struggling artist at the time, but she also was showcasing her broken relationship with her ex, Mozzie. But it all turns into traumatic entertainment. But she was able to use that for privilege, because that's, I'm sure, how she met Dwight. Antonio Gramsci called it hegemony, the way dominant power maintains control not through chains, but through ideology, through the common sense that says, stay married, protect the household, love him through it, be grateful you are chosen. That common sense is the system. And Amy Luciani got caught up in it. And so did Royce. And so have millions of women who have never been on television and will never make it to TMZ. And that's why this is relevant. Because if I'm not talking to you, am I talking to maybe a cousin, a sister, a girlfriend? This content can be relevant to somebody. We are our sister's keepers. So maybe it's not happening to you, or you may not find yourself as a victim in a similar storyline, but it could happen to a sister, a cousin, a girlfriend. We got to share this education, ladies, to remind ourselves to slow down sipping from that patriarchal cup. If you can't stop altogether, you definitely got to slow down. So what does decentering the patriarchy actually look like? What are some steps we can take outside of identifying, reducing our judgment, and recognizing that we want to make a change? We got to pivot immediately. The antidote is not to hate men, but the antidote is to decenter patriarchy and the systems that uplift them. So we're going to question who taught us to decenter our worth, right? And we're going to determine who chooses us by choosing ourselves. So I have another framework called the Love Meditations that goes deeper into identifying how we can love ourselves through actionable practices and meditating on divine self-love. And 2 pillars within the 5, let me break them down for you. They can apply specifically when decentering patriarchy in interpersonal relationships. The first is radiant self-love. So what would it have looked like in Amy's situation if Amy had a genuine love of self from an internal place, a divine place that knew and that said, you deserve to be safe. You deserve to be loved just as you are. You don't deserve any type of abuse. You don't deserve to be around drug use, to hold secrets, to be a Bonnie to someone's Clyde, or a partner to someone's poo-poo party. Like, you can get off the train. You can definitely get off the train. And that's radiant self-love. It's deeper than bubble baths, deeper than body scrubs and solo vacations, but genuinely studying the word to know who you are, how God sees you, because that should be affirmed, refreshed in the mind so that you can see yourself. If you really loved yourself according to the true definition of love, you would never put yourself in situations for a minute. And that goes to all of us, that would allow us to settle or be abused in any stretch. And that's what we should all aim towards. It's a lifelong journey because love is a divine disciplined practice, but it starts with self. And we have to remember that it's first a mindset shift, but we have to stay strengthening that self-confidence muscle. It's all about divine self-love. And the second pillar would be sacred community. So we referenced a few times in this analysis that Amy blamed the people in her life that were telling her to stay with Dwight. But what would the change be if you had safe spaces that were filled with people that were on their similar self-love journey? So the space alone is safe in the sense that you can come with your most vulnerable self and be uplifted, affirmed, encouraged, supported. That's what it's all about. And these spaces are being built every day, especially in these times. And that can make all of the difference as we're on our journeys to live our best lives. And we deserve, right? You deserve. You want a community that will squelch that fear of, if I don't have a man, what am I going to do? You don't need any outside validation. You just need to know who you are and surround yourself with community of like minds. But you don't need anybody's validation because you've already been validated by God. That's already done. We're good here. But we're building those communities right here, even on this YouTube channel. I'm sharing more of the love meditations on this channel, and I cannot wait. Every fourth Thursday during our weekly gift Bible study, which you're invited to, free 99, I lead the love meditations practice, and I share actionable tips as we walk through the Bible for 1 hour. And then additionally, from the love meditations Bible study intro that we have every month, there's also full programming that's developed. We've got worksheets that go in depth, breaking down the 5 pillars. There's also movement options for you. I lead Pilates and hiking. It's a whole community that you deserve. And we're going to really focus on ways that we can love ourselves better, as opposed to just critiquing, judging, and doom scrolling, because we're off of that. And the world needs our gifts, needs us to show up as our best selves. And that takes disciplined action, not just talking about it. We're going live with the playbook, sharing the foundations and the fundamentals, because it's about identifying where you're stuck, recognizing that you have action, taking control, and then making a decision to do something different, which would be to love yourself the way that God loves us. And that is a divine example. We've got the blueprint. Now let's take some actionable practices. Yeah, so let me know your thoughts about Amy Luciani, Dwight Howard, your self-love journey, the lack of self-love that's being displayed in this limited example, the plight of the hot girl framework. Let's talk about it. You can leave me a message in the comments, follow me on social, share this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and take care of yourselves. I've got a host of options for us to further connect, so check the description below. And I can't wait to talk to you next time. Remember to love yourselves because you deserve. Bye.